A black screen. Then, slowly, light bleeds in. The chemical smell of silver nitrate hangs in the air of a small studio in Rochester, New York. A man sits perfectly still. Back straight, jaw set, eyes fixed on something beyond the lens. Something that doesn't yet exist. The camera flashes. And in that single frozen moment, history is made. Not on a battlefield. Not in a courtroom. In a photograph. This man would sit for more portraits than any other person in the 19th century. More than Abraham Lincoln. More than Queen Victoria. More than any general, president, or king. His name was Frederick Douglass. And he understood something that would take the world another century to fully grasp, that the most powerful weapon against oppression was not always a sword. Sometimes, it was an image. Born into slavery in Talbot County, Maryland, around 1818, Frederick Douglass entered a world that refused to recognize his humanity. He was the property of a white man. He had no legal name of his own, no recorded birthday, no rights under law. His mother, Harriet Bailey, was separated from him when he was an infant, a common brutality of the slave system designed to sever the bonds of family and identity. He grew up on a plantation, watching human beings treated as livestock. But Frederick Douglass was watching everything. He was learning. And one day, in an act of defiance that changed his life forever, he taught himself to read. Using the pages of a child's spelling book. Stealing lessons from the white children around him, every word he decoded was a key. Every sentence he mastered was a step closer to freedom. By 1838, at the age of approximately 20, he had escaped north to New York, disguised, terrified, and utterly alive. In the North, Douglass found his voice. He began speaking at abolitionist meetings, and audiences were electrified. Here was a man who had lived inside the horror, who could describe the crack of the whip, the separation of mothers from children, the calculated psychological cruelty of the slave system, with the eloquence of a trained orator. His 1845 autobiography, The Narrative of the Life of Frederick Douglass, an American Slave, became an international sensation. It sold 30,000 copies in 5 years. It was translated into French and Dutch. It proved, with devastating clarity, that the argument for slavery rested on a lie. But Douglass understood something beyond words. He understood that in a society saturated with racist imagery, cartoons, illustrated pamphlets, minstrel shows, the visual representation of black people was itself a battlefield. And photography had just handed him a weapon. Poets, prophets, and reformers are all picture makers, and this ability is the secret of their power and of their achievements. Photography arrived in America in 1839, the same year Douglass was establishing himself on the abolitionist lecture circuit. The daguerreotype, a miraculous process invented by Louis Daguerre in Paris, produced images of startling clarity on polished silver-coated copper plates. For the first time in human history, the world could be captured exactly as it was. No painter's interpretation, no illustrator's bias, pure light, fixed in silver. The process was painstaking. In the early years, exposure times could last several minutes, requiring subjects to sit perfectly motionless, often supported by hidden metal braces. The resulting images had a haunting, almost supernatural quality. Faces suspended in time with extraordinary precision. Douglass recognized the revolutionary potential immediately. Photography was democratic. A daguerreotype portrait cost as little as 25 cents by the 1850s, within reach of ordinary working people. For the first time, the faces of the poor, the working class, the formerly enslaved, could be preserved with the same fidelity as those of presidents and aristocrats. But photography was also being weaponized by those who sought to degrade. In the 1850s, Harvard professor Louis Agassiz commissioned daguerreotypes of enslaved people in South Carolina, stripped, posed, measured like specimens, to support his pseudo-scientific theories of racial hierarchy. These images treated human beings as data points for racism. This was the visual landscape Douglass entered. And he entered it with strategic, deliberate fury. Scholars have now identified at least 160 photographs of Frederick Douglass taken between approximately 1841 and his death in 1895. Compare that to Abraham Lincoln, photographed around 130 times, Ulysses S. Grant, approximately 150 times. By any measure, Frederick Douglass was the most photographed American of the 19th century, but this was no accident. Every single portrait was a choice, a statement, a counter-narrative delivered in silver and light. The numbers are staggering. Frederick Douglass sat for more photographs than any other American of his era. More than Lincoln, more than Grant, more than any president or general. This was not coincidence. It was a carefully orchestrated campaign to control how a people were seen. Step inside the studio with him. Watch carefully. Frederick Douglass is preparing to be photographed. He does not smile. This is deliberate and deeply intentional. In 19th century American popular culture, black men and women were routinely depicted in illustrations and cartoons, with exaggerated caricatured features, wide grins, bulging eyes, cartoonish expressions designed to signal simplicity, civility, or buffoonery. The grinning slave, the happy servant. These images reinforced the ideology of white supremacy as naturally as breathing. Douglass refused every single one of those codes. He sits erect, spine straight as a column, shoulders back, chin slightly elevated. His gaze meets the lens directly, without deference, without apology. His expression is one of absolute controlled gravity. He wears fine formal clothing, frock coats, waistcoats, carefully knotted cravats, not the dress of a servant. The dress of a statesman. His natural hair frames a face of sculpted, commanding presence. Every element communicates the same message. I am a man, a full human being. You will look at me and you will know it. The Negro is sometimes compared with the animal, and told he is made to be a slave. We answer, then why does he possess the image of God? Douglass was not only a subject of photography, he was one of its most sophisticated theorists. Between 1861 and 1865, he delivered 3 major lectures on photography, arguing that it was the most democratic and truthful art form ever created. He called it the Great Leveler. His lecture, Pictures and Progress, delivered in 1864, argued that the human capacity to create and respond to images was itself the foundation of civilization. Picturing things, imagining how they could be, was the engine of all human progress. He saw photography as a tool of truth in a world drowning in lies about race. The portrait, he argued, could do what legislation struggled to accomplish. It could force viewers to confront the humanity of the person before them. You cannot look into the eyes of Frederick Douglass in those photographs and see less than a man. That was precisely the point. That was the entire strategy. And it worked. These portraits circulated as prints, as carte-de-visite cards, small photographic calling cards that became a Victorian craze, and as frontispieces in his books and abolitionist pamphlets. His face became internationally recognized. His image preceded him into rooms that might otherwise have been closed. Who was this man beyond the photographs? Frederick Douglass was a father, a husband, a journalist, and ultimately a statesman. He founded the abolitionist newspaper, The North Star, in Rochester, New York in 1847, declaring in its first edition, "Right is of no sex. Truth is of no color. God is the Father of us all, and we are all brethren." He advised presidents. He met Abraham Lincoln in the White House 3 times. Lincoln reportedly told him he was the most meritorious man in America. During the Civil War, Douglass worked to recruit black soldiers into the Union Army, arguing that service in uniform was itself a claim to citizenship. After the war, he became United States Marshal for the District of Columbia, the first black man to hold that office, then Recorder of Deeds, then United States Minister to Haiti. He was married twice, first to Anna Murray, a free black woman who helped finance his escape from slavery, and was his partner for 44 years, until her death in 1882. Then, controversially for his time, To Helen Pitts, a white suffragist, in 1884. Asked about the mixed-race marriage, Douglass replied with characteristic wit. His first wife was the color of his mother, and his second wife the color of his father. The photographs chart his entire life. We can trace his journey in silver and light. The earliest confirmed portrait, taken around 1841 when he was approximately 23, shows a young man already radiating fierce intelligence and barely contained intensity. His hair is natural and full. His expression carries the weight of someone who has seen things no person should witness. By the 1850s, photographed at the height of his fame as an abolitionist speaker, he projects absolute authority. The set of his jaw is immovable. His eyes hold the lens without a flicker of doubt. In the 1870s and 1880s, age has given his face a different gravitas, deep lines mapping decades of struggle, grey threading through his magnificent hair. But the gaze has not softened by a single degree. In his final portraits taken in 1894, the year before his death, there is something almost geological about his face, a landscape carved by time and purpose. He died on the 20th of February 1895 in Washington, D.C., just hours after attending a women's rights meeting. He was approximately 77 years old. He had been born property. He died one of the most famous human beings on earth. Professor John Stauffer of Harvard University, who co-authored the definitive study picturing Frederick Douglass in 2015, spent years tracking down every known portrait. His research confirmed the count of 160 photographs, a number that continues to grow as archives are searched and collections are catalogued. Stauffer argues that Douglass's photographic campaign was a form of political action, as radical and consequential as any speech or pamphlet. In a society that used visual imagery to dehumanize, Douglass responded with visual imagery that insisted on humanity. The brilliance of the strategy was its simplicity. You could not argue with a photograph. You could not dismiss it with ideology. The image was simply there, insisting on itself. What do we know through archaeological and historical record? The photographs themselves form the primary evidence. Combined with Douglass's own written theories of photography, his lecture manuscripts held at the Library of Congress, correspondence with photographers, and the receipts and studio records of the daguerreotypists he visited across the North and in Europe, the picture is clear. This was intentional, this was strategic, this was art in the service of justice. And the legacy. Consider this. The struggle over how black people are represented, visually, culturally, in the media, has never ended. Every generation since Douglass has had to fight the same battle on different ground. When James Baldwin wrote about the images that shape how we see each other, when black photographers like Gordon Parks reclaimed the camera in the 20th century, when contemporary artists and filmmakers insist on telling their own stories in their own visual language, they are walking a path that Frederick Douglass cut through hostile wilderness with nothing but dignity and a willingness to sit very, very still. The photographs still exist, 160 of them, held in museums, universities, and private collections across America and Europe. Each one is a small revolutionary act, preserved in silver. Each one says the same thing across 150 years of silence. Look at me. I am here. I have always been here. And I am not going anywhere. The camera flashes, the image holds, history changes.